Michelle, please call the roll of members.
D'Amico.
Here.
Troyer.
Here.
Salvatore.
Here.
Mancini.
Here.
Bergio.
Here.
Powers. Here. Higgins.
Here. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
You want to go forward.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item C, approval of minutes of preceding meetings. We have two. And one regular council meeting held on May 5th, 2015.
Motion to accept as printed.
Support. The motion accepted as printed, properly supported, under discussion. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the ayes have it. Go to item number 2, regular council meeting held on May 19th, 2015.
Motion to accept as printed. Support.
Motion made, properly supported, under discussion. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the ayes have it. We'll go to item D, remarks from the audience on any subject matter.
Good evening, Mayor Coyne, President Patton. What are you on about? Oh, by the way,
Please name and address for the
it's
record.
Susan
please.
Barber, 5819 Robert Drive. And I did put some business cards on your calendars because I'm starting a business, Susie a Clown. I also do airbrush tattoos, so spread the word, I appreciate it. So I want to commend you first on settling the grass issue. That was very doable that you did that and honorable. Thank you very much, because I think that was a wise decision, so I want to commend you for that. Now, to my little speech. President Roosevelt had a slogan, walk softly and carry a big stick. He wanted to have government to be efficient, but able to kick some butt. Maybe this council should do the same with the issues on hand and compromise and come to a resolution and do such that. I walk my dogs around the neighborhood in Brook Park, and I notice there's a lot of deadbeat homeowners, and I don't know all the ordinances and codes and everything, but I know the steps are rotten out and falling apart, and driveways, and the list goes on. I don't know if we have the power to enact revenue, but if that's a possibility that we could do that, that would be awesome, because you're always saying our city needs revenue. And the only time that the houses get inspected is when they go up for sale. So I don't know if that's doable, or if you could do anything, or Mayor Coyne could do anything, but I just thought that was kind of came up in my mind. And another thing, I noticed a lot of the porches don't have handrails, and I always thought that was a safety issue. So some have one rail, some have two, and many of the residents don't have no handrails at all. That could be possible revenue there. And I feel if we want to put the park back into Brook Park, or make this town turn around like Mayor Coyne wants to do, bring it back to the way it was before, we need to clean house and make the neighborhoods beautified. And if we don't do that, it won't be doable for people to come in here, younger families. The older people will die out and will be a ghost town. We need to be viable for new people to come in here and buy our houses. And I don't want a ghost town. I've been here since 1976, and I enjoyed all the services. And I know times are changing, and we have certain things we got to do. But these are just some thoughts to ponder about possible revenue ideas. And that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Joan Markusek. I live at 13911 Valbrook Drive. I wanted to ask the mayor if I had to set up a meeting with him, or if I could just ask him here if there would be a possibility of getting a stop sign put in by my street. Also, tonight, this quiet zone issue. I've lived in this house, or in this city since our house was built. And I'm not quite understanding quiet zone issue. I have train tracks like very close to my home. And
Talk in the mic so we can hear you.
I have railroad tracks very close to my home. I have planes that fly overhead, and it's been going on since I was little. And I don't understand why all of a sudden we need a quiet zone. It seems very odd that our streets can't get repaired because we have no money. We have things closing in our city and services cut because we have no money, but we're going to spend all this money on a quiet zone. It sounds very odd to me because it's something that we've had forever, and if you don't want to live near a railroad crossing or have to worry about that sound, don't buy the house. Buy a house somewhere where you don't have a railroad crossing. It's kind of like when you move into a city and you have great city services, you move in for the city services. If you don't want a city with the good city services, move into another one. I don't understand that at all. And I just think that the money could be spent a little bit better. And that's pretty much it. I don't know if maybe it's just such a common thing for me. I hear more, instead of hearing the train whistles, the thing that upsets me a little bit is the sound of the train when it stops and starts, when the cars are clanking, because I never know if somebody is in an accident or if it's the train. And another point I want to say is with the worrying of children being on the railroad tracks, what kind of parent allows their child to be on railroad tracks? That just kind of, accountability has to be somewhere. And that's part of parenting. And if these are older children, they're a little bit responsible for themselves. And our city is going to hell in a handbasket along with the world because we keep on coddling them and going after the city or the railroad or somebody else because we aren't teaching our children, don't do stupid stuff. So I don't know, this quiet zone and kids being on railroad tracks is just something, it's not our responsibility to pay for parents to be negligent. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm Liz, and I moved back to 23065 Cedar Point Road because we can't sell our house. Anyway, the woman that was up here first, talking about property and everything else, whatever. Ted Hurst, I wanted to thank him for helping us out because the two houses next to us, we cannot sell our house because of the two houses next door on both sides of us. Because of the condition of the house, the yards and everything. And, you know, when you can see it from the road, then something needs to be done. I just busted my tail today trying to clean up and make our place look a little bit better, but I just wanted to thank Ted Hurst and pursuing my complaint about how ugly the house looks and overgrown grass and everything else, because the ordinance state that you're supposed to keep your yard up, your house up, make it look nice in the neighborhood. But I had like 3 offers on our house to sell it as is, because the inside was never finished since 1953. And I was very offended when they said that I live next to Cleveland Trash, that they'd rather go and live in Cleveland next to Cleveland Trash than buy the house that we have. So, if the city can see how bad the outside of these properties are, you know, we need to look into it. Because, you know, what a nice neighborhood. You gotta get the other people to work with you. You know, and everybody knows Cedar Point Road, and these beautiful homes there. Everybody takes care of the yards. There's a lot of elderly people in that neighborhood. But, you know, I can't comprehend, out of all the houses there, why I live next door to the worst. So I'm hoping that this Ted did something about it. I hope it goes follow through, and I hope it just doesn't, you know, in one ear and out the other with my neighbors. But just want to let you know that, yeah, I'm back. And I'm going to keep raising hell until my neighbors' yards are cleaned up and looking nice. Because I don't think it's fair that we have to do everything by the book. The neighbors have to too. So, that's the only thing I got to complain about and say. And I think I followed every ordinance so far that I'm not going to get in trouble about. But just want to let you know that just appreciate that the city is actually going to be doing something about our neighbors. So, you guys have a nice summer, and thanks.
Thank you.
Mr. Klein, you look like you're falling asleep.
No, I hear everything you're saying.
Um,
I'm not falling asleep.
Well, I hope not, because you know what? You wouldn't want to live where I live. You live on a nice street and have nice neighbors. You just got to keep the other neighbors cleaned up. So thanks.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move the
Mr.
agenda.
Chairman,
Councilman D'Amico.
I'd like to make a motion to go out of regular order of business and proceed to items N and O, please.
Support. It's a motion to go out of regular order of business to go to items N and O. Properly seconded. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the ayes have it. We'll start with item number 1, resolution number 12-2015.
Introduced by Councilman Salvatore and Council Members Troyer, Mancini, Powers, Higgins, Bergio, D'Amico, Council President Patton, and Mayor Coyne, honoring Kathy Stadahar for being nominated as 2015 Citizen of the Year and declaring an emergency.
Move to suspend. Support.
Motion to suspend, properly supported. Under discussion, Michelle, call the roll on suspension.
D'Amico?
Yes.
Salvatore?
Yes.
Troyer?
Yes.
Mancini?
Yes.
Bergio?
Yes.
Powers? Yes. Higgins?
Yes.
Move to adopt.
Support.
Motion to adopt, properly supported. Under discussion, Michelle, please call the roll on adoption.
Salvatore?
Yes.
Bergio?
Yes.
Mancini?
Yes.
Powers? Yes. Higgins?
Yes.
D'Amico?
Yes.
Troyer?
Yes.
Resolution number 12-2015 is passed under suspension of the rules. We've got item number 2, resolution number 13-2015.
Introduced by Councilman Salvatore and Council Members Troyer, Mancini, Powers, Higgins, Bergio, D'Amico, Council President Patton, and Mayor Coyne, honoring Jan Skinner for being nominated as 2015 Citizen of the Year and declaring an emergency.
Move to suspend.
Support.
Motion to suspend, properly supported. Under discussion, Michelle, call the roll on suspension.
D'Amico?
Yes.
Troyer?
Yes.
Salvatore?
Yes.
Mancini?
Yes.
Bergio?
Yes.
Powers? Yes. Higgins?
Yes.
Move to adopt.
Support.
Motion to adopt, properly supported. Under discussion, Michelle, call the roll on adoption.
Salvatore?
Yes.
Mancini?
Yes.
Bergio?
Yes.
Powers? Yes. Higgins?
Yes.
D'Amico?
Yes.
Troyer?
Yes.
Resolution number 13-2015 has had its passed under suspension of the rules. We've got item number 3, resolution number 14-2015.
Introduced by Councilman Salvatore and Council Members Troyer, Mancini, Powers, Higgins, Bergio, D'Amico, Council President Patton, and Mayor Coyne, honoring Don and Holly Rudy on celebrating 2 golden anniversaries and declaring an emergency.
Suspend. Support.
Mr. Chairman.
Councilman,
Sit down and second reading.
yeah, if you would. Remove your motions.
I would move the motion.
Okay, thank you. Resolution number 14-2015 has had its second reading. The resolution number 15-2015.
Introduced by Councilman Salvatore and Council Members Troyer, Mancini, Powers, Higgins, Vergio, D'Amico, Council President Patton, and Mayor Coyne, honoring Samantha Rocco for being accepted into the Junior Statesmen of America Summer School Program at Princeton University and declaring an emergency.
Move to suspend.
Support.
Motion to suspend properly supported. Under discussion. Michelle, call a roll on suspension.
Troyer,
Yes.
Salvatore,
Yes.
D'Amico,
Yes.
Mancini,
Yes.
Vergio,
Yes.
Powers, yes, Higgins.
Yes.
Move to adopt. Support.
Motion to adopt properly supported. Michelle, call a roll on adoption.
Salvatore,
Yes.
D'Amico,
Yes.
Troyer, starting over.
Yes.
Salvatore, Troyer,
Yes.
D'Amico,
Yes.
Mancini,
Yes.
Vergio,
Yes.
Powers, yes, Higgins.
Yes.
Resolution number 15-2015 is passed on suspension of the rules. Go to item O. We have one under third reading. Resolution number 10-2015.
Honoring the Berea Mid-Park Titans boys basketball team for the winning the back-to-back Southwest Conference Championship and district runner-up and declaring an emergency. Introduced by Councilman Vergio and Council Members Troyer, Mancini, Powers, Higgins, D'Amico, Salvatore, Council President Patton, and Mayor Coyne.
Move to adopt. Support.
Motion to adopt properly supported. Under discussion. Michelle, call a roll on adoption.
D'Amico,
Yes.
Salvatore,
Yes.
Troyer,
Yes.
Mancini,
Yes.
Vergio,
Yes.
Powers, yes, Higgins.
Yes. Councilman Schreier.
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to make note and let everybody know that first, the bridges contract for the leasing of the basement of the rec center.
Can we wait till after the end of the meeting and
Oh,
handle this? Well,
I see, I'm sorry.
yeah, that's okay.
Got ahead of myself.
Councilman Salvatore. Call them up.
We're going to start with we not only have one, we have two citizens of the year. That's the kind of city we are. We're double at everything. I'd like to invite up Jan Skinner. Is she here? Yes. There you go. Congratulations, Jan. Jan's very instrumental in working with the Meals on Wheels and also at the Audrey's Outreach Kitchen. On behalf of the mayor, city council, and all the members and the residents of Brook Park, congratulate you.
Thank you.
And stay up here, you might as well wait for the second one to come up. We had a tie. Kathy? You were instrumental in working with the Narrow Group? Okay. Both of you, you know, are going to be leading the parade this year. You'll be the Grand Marshals. And we haven't decided if we're going to put you on a horse or because we're all Democrats, we're going to give you donkeys. We haven't decided. But, Mayor, after you'll work that out and have something in front of the parade with the mayor. Do you have anything you'd like to say? Anything?
Thank you.
You're first. You're here. It's all yours. No? Straight. How about you? Well, congratulations to the team. We'll contact you for the parade. We have a young lady here in the audience, her name is Samantha Rocco, who was awarded a very high honor, being accepted into the Princeton program. She'll be attending Princeton College this summer, receiving college credits while she's still active in high school. She'll be a senior next year. Samantha Rocco. Before she gets up here and gives her a 30-minute speech, she's been working on it, I would like to give you a little background about this program, how widespread it is. There was 800 applicants from all over the world, and only 25% were accepted into the program. So that's a great job, Samantha. As well as getting this award tonight, she's also very instrumental in our community, working with our seniors as well as our youth. I think she's got a new best friend. The lady's 100 years old. She's working at the North Park Retirement Community, known as the Bingo Lady. As well as that, she's also working with our youth. She's part of the mentoring group, working with our youth that just started. It's a new program. It's really taken off. It's doing a great job. and partly because of the input that she has brought to the table. So again, congratulations. We're very proud of you. Keep up the good work. President to the debate team. She'll be the new president of the debate team at Mid-Park High School next year. I try to keep your speech down about 5 minutes.
All right, thank you.
Congratulations.
Councilman Bergio?
This is definitely the night for honorees, and I see we have a couple of our basketball champs here tonight. I'd like to come up to the podium. Don't be shy. Anderson and Nolan. These boys did an outstanding job along with the rest of the team, and they've been really making a name for themselves. The high school, since it's merged, been winning a lot of games, and I think they won their back-to-back Southwest Conference championship, and a lot of good things for our community. So I just want to congratulate them and give them this proclamation and bring this back to the school. Anything to say? No. Nice and short and sweet. Thanks a lot. Congratulations again.
Congratulations.
Mr. Chairman,
Councilman D'Amico.
I'd like to make a motion to go back into regular order of business.
Support.
There's a motion made, properly supported, under discussion. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the ayes have it. We go to item E, reports from standing committees. We'll start with Aviation and Environmental. Councilman Higgins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No report this evening.
Thanks, Councilman. Go to Finance Committee. Councilman D'Amico.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Board of Control met tonight. We approved 23 items. Thank you.
Thanks, Councilman. Go to Legislative Committee. Councilman Troyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Legislative had 4 items on tonight's agenda. Thank you.
Thanks, Councilman. Go to Parks and Recreation. Councilman Bergio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Parks and Recreation had legislation on tonight's agenda.
Thanks, Councilman. Go to Planning Committee. Councilman Mancini.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. We had a meeting yesterday, June 1st. We had 2 new pieces of business. The first was a request for an authentic approval to install a new front porch at 6413 Stonecrest, located in the U1 A3 zone district. Both the husband and wife grew up in Brook Park, which is good to see. They chose to stay here and put an addition on, or this was Bev. She grew up in Brook Park. She's going to put a porch on, and it's great to have Bev staying and doing work on her home, so that's great. Number 2 was a request for authentic approval to install a new front porch at 14102 Heatherwood Drive, located in the U1 A4 zone. And both Chris and Kelly, again, both were born and raised in Brook Park. They're going to put like a little front porch, a temple type, something we don't see a lot here, which I think is going to be very nice, and that was approved. We have 1 table item placed on the agenda, which we approved, and that was a request for aesthetic approval for entry signage at 4985 West 150th Street, Rock and Roll City, Harley Davidson, located in the U7C district, and again, that was approved. That's all I have for tonight, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thanks, Councilman. Go to Safety Committee. Councilman Salvatore.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Safety Committee does not have legislation on tonight's agenda.
Thanks, Councilman. Go to Service Committee. Councilwoman Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Service Committee has no report this evening.
Thanks, Councilwoman. We go to Board of Zoning Appeals. Councilman D'Amico.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Board of Zoning met last night before the Planning Commission, and as you heard Mr. Mancini speak on those issues, we gave the variances for those items, and the Harley Davidson is now looking good on as far as trying to finish all their signage up. And at this time, the next Board of Zoning will be June 1st, provided there's applications made. Thank you.
Thanks, Councilman. Go to item F, reports from special committees. We'll start with Southwest General Health Center Trustee, Councilman Salvatore.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have a brief report. The committee that I served on for selection of new members, we haven't been able to fill a couple of spots yet, but we did submit to the board the following names for different positions within the hospital, and they were all approved at the last meeting. The chairman will remain Dr. Ben Grange. The vice chairman will now be Dave Lambros. The president will remain Mr. Sullivan until the end of the year. The treasurer is Ms. Harold, and the secretary will be Mr. Bartolotto from Middleburg Heights. And the returning members on the systems board will be Ms. Schaefer, Dr. Hagan, Mr. Rapepi, Mr. Kalinich, and Mr. Wheaton. Other than that, Mr. Chairman, that's all the report out of the hospital.
Thanks, Councilman. Move to the Korea Board of Education Representative, Councilman Mancini.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On the school board report, some good news, some not so many good news. The good news is that I know you all know no more school. Tomorrow's the last day. Some of the kids got half days. I believe some of the seniors might be out already. Which I always say is, be careful this summer when you're driving. Remember when you're going out in the morning and you're coming home at lunch or whatever you're doing during the day, the kids are going to be off after tomorrow, so it's important to remember and absolutely let your neighbors know too. And let's hope they have a good summer, and let's hope we have a good summer of weather. So let's hope so, okay? My other part is it talks about a little bit about the levy and some things going on with the governor. I want to cover it a little bit. The Berea School District leaders no longer plan to ask voters for new tax money this year. They say they'll need to wait to see how much state aid they'll get. We're just anxious, like all other school districts are, to see the final budget bill from the state and really see how that impacts our districts before we make a decision to go to the ballot. Superintendent of Schools Michael Shepard said 2 Thursdays ago. A lot of factors are unknown about school finances, which is kind of scary. School boards must go to boards of elections for non-emergency levy proposals at least 90 days before the desired election date. The Ohio Senate has not voted on a budget yet, and Shepard expects a decision too late for the levy this year. Governor Kadish proposed boosting school funding overall from about $7 billion this school year to $7.4 billion in 2015-2016 and $7.7 in 2016-2017. But his formula would have cut funds for about half of the state's districts. Berea's money would have slipped from $16.7 million this school year to an estimated $16 million next year and a projected $15.3 million the year after under the government's plan. The House rejected Kadish's cuts. Last November, 54% of the district's voters rejected a proposed continuing levy of 3.9 mils. It would have cost $136.50 per home with a market of $100,000. The new money would have paid for new buses, computers, and more. Shepard said the board is buying some of those things, but not as many as if the levy would have passed. If the district doesn't try another levy in 2016, the measure can't take effect until 2017 tax year, payable in 2018. Shepard said he thought the district could get by until then without layoffs or cutbacks in services. Local revenues are projected to be fairly stable. In the past 4 years, Berea has shut several schools, cut nearly 2,000 of its 1,001 jobs, and trimmed about $8 million from its annual budget, now at about $79 million. The district has also frozen pay for the past 6 years. The district includes cities of Berea, Brook Park, Middleburg Heights, and slivers of Cleveland and Olmsted Falls, and it has about 6,600 students. I hope y'all take note, and that's all I have. And again, remember, summer's out, or summer's for their kids, so be careful out there. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Councilman. We have no items on G or H, but item I, reports from communications from the mayor, Mayor Coyne.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of issues this evening. They seem to be the topic of discussion. Susan Barber about the grass issues and home maintenance. I can tell you that every day that we are getting communications from the councilman complaining about grass and yard maintenance and the building department. Chris Corrigan keeps pretty busy literally every day trying to address those particular issues, and those are relatively, for the most part, easy to remedy. We have other issues of declining maintenance of homes. Recently, the city was awarded a grant for demolition of homes in the city. We have about 300 homes that are either in the stage of foreclosure, vacant, or abandonment. And we're working with the law department to try to remedy as many of these things as we possibly can. we've become victims, like so many other suburbs, of people flipping houses and creating rental situations, and the renters, with few exceptions, tend not to be the greatest neighbors in the neighborhood. So we're more interested in, I believe, as Joan talked about, is attracting young families to the town. The council did pass several measures relative to assistance of rebuilding the houses. On the sidewalk program, that we're in the process of addressing coming up, and also the assistance for people who have these cross connections. And a lot of the work was done when Dennis Patton was the service director, trying to update some of these things so we can help our people eliminate some of these problems. So the three of those programs, when they're run to fruition, we believe will begin to take a serious look, change the look of the city. And when folks talk about money, we don't have money for this, we don't have money for that, it's like everything else. Every issue needs to be addressed with the revenue that we've had, and while we may have some differences up here, none of us argue with what are the problems and how do we address them. And I think council has done that through the budget in the first step in trying to remedy some of these problems. Unfortunately, people who are bad neighbors have rights the same as people who are good neighbors, and we have to muddle through the legal ramifications of how to address those issues. Finally, Mr. Chairman, on the quiet zones, I think people should understand the history of this in the city. And you heard Brian Higgins mention that we should get our council or our Congresswoman Marcy Kaptur in this issue. I'm sure she'll be very attentive to this. Our former Congressman, Dennis Kucinich, was largely responsible for the increase of the train traffic through the city of Brook Park. And that he represented Lakewood at that time. And Steve LaTourette was our congressman, and he saw fit to reroute all these trains into our town. And you heard Mike Dolan talk about we have the most quiet zones around, is because our city is dissected in two areas almost completely by railroad trains. We secured the money for the quiet zones under federal grants when I was the mayor here. Dennis Patton and myself testified down there. As a matter of fact, the gentleman who was just disgraced this week, the former Speaker of the House, couldn't understand what our problem was. And the next time we come back, as if you recall, Dennis, we went back to his district and find out what they were doing with the new horns. He completely understood what we were talking about because he represented, I think it was Yorkville, Illinois, which is kind of an area like Brook Park, Ohio. So we're in a constant process of trying to address that. The good news is the business of the railroads, their business is actually up because they're hauling so many containers, and that will hopefully be a drawing point for the redevelopment of the Ford property, because more and more companies are choosing to use containers to distribute their goods. So this is an ongoing thing. It's important to people. It is, when they change these horns and these shrills, I have one gentleman, if anyone thinks these aren't worthwhile projects, can come to my office and listen to his cry for help about the situation. Finally, the stop sign issue on Bellbrook, we'll have to look at that. For every stop sign, there has to be an ordinance passed. There's a famous case in the city of Brook Park. Anyone who's lived there a long time knows that we literally had stop signs at every single intersection in the city. And we lost the case because it cannot be used for speed control. So every stop sign has to be a study done, there has to be justification, and there has to be an ordinance passed by city council for that. So it's not just a case of putting up a stop sign. Other than that, Mr. Chairman, I have no other comments.
Councilman Bergio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mayor, like over the last 5 or 6 years, we've been spending a lot of money on phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 on our sewer project because so many people have been having flooding issues. I'm wondering, we had flash flood warnings over the week, especially Saturday. How did our city fare through that? Have you
Shockingly, and meeting with the director on Monday, very well. Shockingly, very well.
I'm glad to hear that, because I didn't get one phone call, so I keep my fingers crossed, so I'm glad that
If you'll see in the capital budget, I have the engineering for the next phase in there to further goes down there. So I think once we can attack these cross-connection issues with the folks that remain, hopefully someday, it's always been our goal to completely eliminate flooding in our city, but Councilman, I can't believe we didn't have more issues than we
I
had.
can't even, I'm glad to hear that, because we had the flash flood warnings specifically in Brook Park. I kept getting alerts on my iPhone, and I was just praying that it would not be that much of a heavy volume, which causes problems, but I'm glad to hear that, Mayor. That's all I have.
Councilman Mancini.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mayor, I wholeheartedly concur on the housing. I mean, sometimes I know maybe you guys refer to me when I send them memos, because I send a lot of them in a building department. Ted, and you're absolutely right, Chris has been great on the grass, on the backyards, on the housing maintenance, and I think with the rental registry, the sidewalks, we're moving right ahead. I know in my ward before me, Patty Estorino was on people. Today, Mike Dolan helped me out a lot on a house on Lockhaven. We're looking to buy it, tear it down. It's bad, and it's been that way a long time, and I think we're moving ahead on that. Where my question's going is the streets, as I probably usually sometimes hit you up, and I remember you talked when I asked 2 meetings ago about maybe having a meeting about maybe some type of capital improvement tax, or maybe talk a little bit about this rubbish down the road. Are we going to have that meeting within a not too distant future at all?
Yes, I gave you this evening just the streets that the engineer and I looked at, right, I guess, I don't know if we've had this beginning of spring yet, the way our weathers went, but looking at it. And so council can have an appreciation of the enormity of what the costs are. We'll also make available, I think council just sent our pavement rating system that we have. There's some method to our madness. And yes, the law department is drafting right now for me a measure to go on the fall ballot for capital improvements only, for roads and sewers. And if the city can't make that decision for themselves to see the need, everyone I run into, well, they argue with me just about everything else, that one thing they seem to recognize, hopefully that they will, because it's needed. And you can just see an analysis that hopefully you'll get a copy of very soon, that's the case. So I would like to have a meeting on that particular issue so we can discuss all the different avenues that are available to us, and I think you'll see why the best available avenue is to get the increase in the tax. And I think it should be an issue in this election. If people are against it, they can explain it to people why they're against it. We don't need it, let them explain that. Or why we do. And I think that the numbers, and I think walking around, you're all going to be walking around, if that's one thing that people they can see, is the condition of the streets in the city. So yes, I hope to do that. I'll talk with the council president to try to, I know you got a summer schedule coming up, so the answer to the question is yes.
Okay, thank you. I know, real quick, I'm out now, and definitely that's a big issue, is the streets, a few other things, but I seen you gave that estimate, $900,000 for Leslie Sylvia. That's really $1 million, so I maybe in my ward need maybe $15 million, so.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I think one more thing we have to revisit, and I got Ed researching this. The city did not consider joining into the water department program about the poaching issue. And part of our problem is going to be when we replace a road, and they identify it, and Brian probably knows this better than anyone, addressing the water lines. And if we're not part of that program, we have to address that problem ourselves, and it's increasingly going to be more expensive for us. And the bottom line is this agreement, I don't really think it jeopardizes, because in most discussions we have, if somebody comes from another city, the two cities try to work it out. So that's something I think council should take a look at. I think probably Brian and Dennis could help us in understanding that issue. But I wasn't aware until I went to a water council meeting that we weren't part of the program. So.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to ask the mayor, on the road repairs, Smith Road, what is the reason for, every time I drive up and down Smith Road in front of the shopping center, one day you've got a huge hole that they're digging, the next day they fill it in, they dig up something else, and they've dug up the same street, holes in that street, continuously all summer long. Dig them out, fill them up, dig them out, fill them up. So, is that why it cost us so much to get a road repaired?
If I may,
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, they're replacing the sewer. So they have the main sewer line that goes down the street. If they have to do any connections, they have to dig those up as well. And what we're looking at, it appears at this point that we might have some money left in the project, and the engineer and I were talking about if the project coordinators will allow us, that we can take that money and do some repairs of the road, which is needed as well. So it looks sometimes that there's no method to their madness, but there is. And then many times when they're excavating something where the utilities come out and said, yes, everything is over here, it's not over here, it's over here. And so then something happens, like a water line or gas line or something like that. So I think it's moving along reasonably well, and we'll go from there.
But if they dig the hole first and they say it's over here, not over here, then why don't they just go ahead and dig out, and while they've got it dug out the first time, widen it to handle the problem in that area before they fill it back in and then have to open it up again. And
Okay,
I mean, this has been going on since last November.
I think what might be helpful, it's clear to me that you don't understand what the project is and how they address the problems. Maybe if I could spend a little time with you and explain to you what's going on personally, you'd have a better understanding.
I think the whole community would like an explanation.
I want to tell you that it's a massive project on a main road, and I think they're doing a pretty good job under the conditions they have to work. And it's not, no construction project is easy in an urban community, none.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councilman Higgins?
Mr. Chairman, just to add for Councilwoman's Powers' explanation, I'd be concerned a little bit too more if it was what they call a T&M job, time and material, where a contractor gets paid for the material they use and the hours they put in. But on that particular hour, they have a lump sum bid that they have a flat rate for, so they don't get paid for digging that hole 2 or 3 times. So they're going to try to do that job most efficiently so they can make the most money or profit they can on that project. So there's different particulars why they may be doing that without knowing what's going on the job. It's hard to explain what they're doing, but since it's not a time and material job, rest assured they wouldn't unnecessarily be digging something, because every time they spend more time digging a hole, it eats into their profit margin.
Well, it's eating into the profit margin of the shops at Brookgate, because
Understood.
people are shopping elsewhere. Those shops are telling me that they're losing money because the road's been torn up since last November. It's just hard to get through there. But thank you, Mr. Higgins.
Move the agenda to item J, reports and communications from other departments, commissions, and public officials. We'll start with our city engineer, Ed Katak.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess to touch on a couple projects, the Smith Sewer being one of them, and Councilwoman Powers, I'd be happy to meet you during the day out on site, and we can take a little tour, and I could show you how the sewer goes in and some of the operations that are going on, and hopefully that would clear up some of the questions that you have. Right now, the contractor's working on service connections, main lines in. I believe we did reap some benefits from that over the weekend with the sewer calls, or lack thereof, with the rains. So, I think there's evidence of what we're doing is working. We're working on service connections north of Snow. We're getting close to wrapping those up. Hope that by the end of this week, early next week, they'll be up done in that area. After that, they're going to move south of Snow and continue down to Holland. North of Snow, once they're done in that area, we're going to start some of the pavement work. So hopefully in the next couple of weeks, we'll start to see some improvements in the traffic and the construction over there, especially for the Brookgate businesses. The Sylvia Leslie project, bids were open last week. The contractor's on board control for tonight. It was approved. Begin executing those contracts, getting signatures, start getting submittals in from the contractor. I would anticipate construction starting later this month or early next month. But again, that project will be completed this construction season. Lastly, the Holland CSX quiet zone. I don't know if, I guess I missed the caucus, so I may have missed some of this discussion. But I was informed that a bulletin was issued to CSX trains using that track and using that crossing, informing the engineers that a quiet zone has been created at that location. In the past, with phase 1 that went into effect, I know it took a while for the guys in the trains to acknowledge the bulletin and to get used to not blowing the horn as they go through. But I would anticipate start to see some relief from the train horns over in that section of town. That's all I have this evening.
Councilman Mancini?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ed, that's good to hear with the train horns. I know there's no promise on that, but that's just a good thing to hear. 2 other questions real quick. On that phase 3 on that Smith Road project, are we looking at any more funds in that? Is there any kind of time frame or timetable on that maybe when that might get done? I know Ms. Powers brought up how, it's all tied up there, but I know that project we want to get completed.
I'm not sure what you're...
Phase 3 is to Sheldon Road, am I not?
That's phase 4. We're in phase 4 right now. Phase 3 right now. Phase 4 would, I believe, stop a little short of Michael. When Michael comes in, I have not received any correspondence from Public Works since I last talked about it. I believe that was early this year. I have not received any information that any additional funds have become available. I believe we have until late August, to accept the funds that were made available to us or to resubmit an application into the next program year. So,
okay.
More information to come.
All right, that's all. I appreciate that. One other thing is, and you did call it, and I appreciate all the work you've done through the years on this flooding. I know on Saturday, boy, it was coming down hard, and I thought so too. Actually, my good friend Billy Elsie's here tonight. He stopped to see me Saturday and watching me keep looking at my phone. I thought my phone was going to ring for flooding, and it never did. So we got to get caught in our conversation, and good job. But I got no phone calls, so that was a good thing you called it. Thanks, Ed.
Councilman Bergio?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ed, I think you partially answered my question. With all the phase 1, phase 2, and now phase 3, starting at Brook Park Road 6 or 7 years ago, are you seeing that it is benefiting our residents as far as less flooding issues throughout the city?
Phase 1 started, I believe, in 2007. I think that went into service 2007. And, every storm, every 100-year event that comes through, Brook Park is different. But we've seen some come through since, phase 1 went in, and then phase 2 and phase 3. And we've mapped the sewer calls that come in, the complaints that have come in, and, through the years, we have seen, a decrease in the number of sewer calls. Is that attributed to the particular event that happened later? Possibly, but I don't think so. I mean, I think that, the improvements down Smith Road with the number of users on that sewer, increasing its capacity to what we have has made a tremendous impact on the residents in town.
I'm glad to hear that. Also, I know we want to get that done as soon as possible, and it is an inconvenience, but we owe our residents that, because if it does help them, it's a sacrifice worth making. I notice there are some days where nobody is working there. And it's dry weather, and is there a reason that they're not working every day?
Right now, the contractor's been on 410s, and typically their day off would be Friday if weather's permitted, for Monday through Thursday work. If it rains on Wednesday, then they'll work on Friday. So typically that's how they've operated. They have had some issues with the one piece of equipment out there that they're using on the service connections. It's a specialized piece of equipment. I believe they've got the bugs worked out, and they're going to hopefully be picking up the pace on making those connections. So,
Thank you. In case someone asks why they're not working, I have a good answer now. Thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Councilman Schroeder?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the chair, to the engineer. Mr. Piatek, gonna go back to the service connections. This doesn't seem right to me, but do they actually put the main pipe in, fill it over, and then come back later, dig it up, and put the some service connections in?
That's exactly what they do.
Okay, so that would be the reason it looks like they're putting a pipe in, and it's done, and then all of a sudden they gotta come back and dig it up?
Yes, that's exactly. Main line goes in, the existing sewer stays in service. There's temporary connections made from, for the existing service connections, so that the people can still use their facilities. Main line goes in, they come back. We make provision while the main line's going in for the connections, for the future connections, or for the connections that they come back. We core holes in the pipe, put boots in it to accept the new connection when they come back and make the tie-in. But yes, the main goes in, put into service, then they come back and dig it up and put the service connections in.
Counterintuitive, but it's the way it's done.
That's the way it's
Thank you.
done.
And the Sylvia Leslie, when I ask you all the time, what's the time frame for him having it done, once it starts?
It'll be this construction season. I'd have to go back and look. I don't recall what the completion date, if it was 75-day completion date. So, once we issue the notice to proceed, it would be 75 days. I don't see construction running out of construction season based on, the time of year and where we're at right now.
And is that's going to be a full depth cement?
Full depth pavement removal and replacement will be 6-inch curbs, concrete curbs, 8-inch pavement, reinforced concrete.
Okay, and it's going to be just the same width as it is now, correct?
13-foot lanes, yes, back to curb, back to curb, back to curb.
Okay. And, getting back to the Smith Road sewer project, is there anything that can be done? There's two businesses there. They're kind of the beverage store and the pizza shop there. And I understand they have some issues with customers being able to get in and out. I know Brookgate has their issues too, but they have the Snow Road entrance and the Hummel Road. They're really kind of locked in there. Is there anything that can be done to help them out a little bit?
As far as I'm aware, we've been in touch with the business owner at the liquor store. We've made accommodations for him to get his deliveries. At this point here, I don't know that there's really much else. I don't know if there's anything else we can do. He's got access. He has access in and out of his property. His trucks have access for deliveries. So.
Okay. And one more thing. On the flooding, can you explain how, because people might not understand that this is a sanitary sewer going in, how it helps with storm flooding? Can you explain that?
Your sanitary sewer gets surcharged in storm events because of cross connections, because of leaky pipe joints, things of that nature. So it's a combined issue that's occurring.
Right. So the cross connection is getting into the cross connections, which is overfilling the sanitary pipes, and we need it to go into the big pipe rather than go into the basements.
Correct.
Thank you.
Councilman D'Amico.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through the chair to Ed. Ed, just curious, when you talked about the pavement finally getting done over on Smith Road, is that going to be curb to curb or just down the center?
Just the trench joint, to the trench slot.
So the blacktop that they laid, the first portion of that, is that it, or are they going to repave that again, the whole thing when it's done? There's a portion up front by Smith and Snow that's kind of done.
At Smith and Snow.
Right.
There's a concrete cap over that's just temporary. When we're done, the trench repair will consist of, I believe it's 9 inches of reinforced concrete with a 2.5 inch or 3 inch overlay of asphalt.
Okay.
So it'll match, basically what the repair is going to be is what's there now. Concrete base with an asphalt overlay.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
We're going to move the agenda, go to our service director, Luke Cahan.
No report, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Luke. Jim Mancini.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Lou, with the new grass, everything going on, could we get maybe a little update how it went here in the past couple of days with the grass pickup?
Went smooth, no problems.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Move the agenda, we'll go to our safety director, Dave Burns.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to at least report we have had some cases of vandalism at our parks. The police are stepping up, paying attention to them. Pardon me. We've had some spray painting, writing with Sharpies, and it's happened on 3 consecutive weekends. So people can hold an eye that live near the park, call the police if they see anybody acting suspiciously or carrying a can of spray paint. Would be a good idea. But that's about the only thing in town we have to report on this week.
Thanks, Dave. Councilman Higgins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, to the chair, to our safety director. Dave, I don't know if it's been repaired yet. Maybe it's something the service director has to look at, but if you could put on special attention over at Middlebrook Playground, there's like a ornamental black fence that runs along the railroad tracks there. It's been a problem for forever over there, where kids will cut through a hole through that fence so they can cut through over to Michael. Sometimes we put a temporary fence across there. If you could put that on special attention with your guys, I'd appreciate that.
Absolutely. Thank you.
We'll move the agenda to our law director, Neil Jameson.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I would just like to add on to what the mayor said earlier about the stop sign on Bellbrook. He's correct. Back in the mid-'80s, there had been a lawsuit filed against the city to basically address the number of stop signs in the city. For those of you who have been here a while, if you remember in the 70s and early 80s, an example like Dolores Boulevard, there was a stop sign on every side street that intersected with Dolores. The judge in that case eventually ruled that Brook Park, and other cities were included, cannot regulate traffic by the means of stop signs. So as a result, a lot of the stop signs on streets like Dolores, Middlebrook Boulevard, had to be removed. Pursuant to that judgment entry, we're allowed to put a stop sign back in if there are extenuating circumstances, like a number of accidents, if there's a fatality, which took place on Dolores, and I forget Remora. And that was not there originally, but there was a sad incident where a person was killed by a person leaving Brookgate Shopping Center. So we do have the ability, if there are incidents taking place in terms of accidents or pedestrian incidents, and we can address that and take a look at it. And I would suggest anyone who is concerned initially has to go to the safety director, we evaluate it, and then would eventually go to council. The second thing I want to bring up is, back when I started back in the early 80s, my mentor and one of my predecessors, Art Lambros, instituted a program to prepare and notarize what were called back in the day estate by the entirety deeds. And this was free to the citizens of Brook Park, residents of Brook Park, and we did it here in the council chambers. It was a big success. And after I took office, I always was searching for a way to try and implement the same kind of program, and I came up with it earlier this year to basically provide to the residents of the city a form that I typically use in the estate planning that I do for clients that I represent, and that is a HIPAA form, which I mailed out last weekend to the seniors in the community. And what that form is basically, the HIPAA Act was passed in 1996 by Congress, and in that act it provides that before a medical provider, a doctor, a hospital, a nurse, insurance company can talk to anyone other than the patient that they're dealing with, that person, that patient has to sign what's called a HIPAA release form. Otherwise, that provider technically is not allowed to disclose medical information to anyone. So what has been developed are HIPAA release forms where a patient can authorize that medical provider to release information to the persons who are designated. So I've developed a form that went out to seniors in our city last weekend, and I would just let council members know if anyone has any questions, they can call me. We are going to be at the rec center this Saturday from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. To notarize anyone who wants to sign that in our presence and to have the document properly executed. So I just felt this was something that had always been a service that I wanted to provide to the citizens, and it really goes back to when I started in the mid-'80s in the program that we did right here in these council chambers. Other than that, Mr. Chairman, nothing else.
Okay, Councilman Bergeron.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Neil, just a comment. I was on Dolores today and somebody brought up the stop sign issue. They wanted to get it back get one there again. I told him the history about it. He said, well, the speed is going up and down the street. He said, that's primarily the reason why we can't get a stop sign up there. So it was really kind of timely, but thanks for the info.
No problem. Another city where that suit had been brought was also in Parma Heights. Back in the day, Parma had 1 million stop signs. And the law has basically been developed that cities cannot use stop signs to regulate traffic.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Powers. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through the chair to Mr. Jameson. Mr. Jameson, you sent out that letter to seniors, and I was very concerned about it because it seems to me that it is violating a person's rights that they have under the HIPAA laws. When you go to a doctor, a new doctor, your old doctor, the first thing you do is fill out the paper for the HIPAA laws. When you go to the hospital, the first thing you do is fill out your HIPAA law form. And that information is supposed to be strictly between your doctor, between your hospital and you. And it tells you who you want to make a decision if you're not able to make that decision. And I really don't think that you or anyone else outside the medical profession should have access to that information. So I really was concerned about that letter that came out.
If I may respond, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
There's 2 errors in what you just said. First of all, this document doesn't authorize anybody to perform any acts. That document is a healthcare power of attorney. This is a HIPAA form. And this is not something that it's giving me the power. What it is, as an example, if I put my children and wife on my HIPAA form, and I go to the hospital in an emergency or something happens, and my daughter walks into the emergency room, as the law stands, the medical providers cannot talk to her technically because they don't have that release form at that point. So that if I executed a HIPAA release form, gave a copy to my daughter, and she walked in with it, they could then, with no restrictions, have a dialogue about what treatment they're giving me or what they're doing for me. Or if, let's say, I'm going in for a surgery and there's pre-admission, screening that they do, and the questions they always ask are, do you have a healthcare power of attorney, do you have a living will, and have you executed a HIPAA release form? And so again, if you're going in for surgery and you would like to give a copy of that to put in your chart, you could do that. So this form doesn't give me any information. This is something that people can use for themselves, for their family and loved ones, so that there's no barriers or any problems when that person goes in and gets treatment. And so it's not giving me any powers. There's no violation here. This is something that's used universally. Other lawyers have done this, and it's something that we've been doing in the practice that I've done for the last 10 to 15 years. So it's not giving me any power. All I did is I provided the form, and I gave it to the people for them to fill out on their own if they choose to do it. They don't have to do this. This is not something you have to do. Would I suggest that you do it? Yeah, because it makes it easier for those around you to be able to know what's going on. But it doesn't give anybody power to make decisions. That's another document. But it does make it easier. And every hospital, every doctor, every medical provider has different rules in how they apply this. And so I always say it's like insurance. If you ever need it or the situation arises where it makes it easier for your family or loved ones to know what's going on about you, then it's a good tool or mechanism to use. So I would disagree with that on 2 points.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
I thank you for your explanation, but I have had the personal experience of having different doctors, and the first thing you do when you go into a new doctor is give them your insurance forms, very important, and then you sign your HIPAA paper that says who you want to have access to your information. And when you go to the hospital, it's the same thing. Show me that you're going to pay this bill. And after that, it's Show me who you want to take care of you, to know who is going to have that information. And so you sign a HIPAA paper, both at your doctor, every doctor you go to, and you sign a HIPAA paper at the hospital when you go in. So this is really not necessary. Thank you.
Councilman Higgins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the law director. Well, I was discussing earlier this evening with Councilman Salvatore how fast and how old you seem to get. I actually got one of your forms, so I guess I'm a senior citizen now, even though I'm not as old as Mr. Salvatore. But thank you, thank you.
You're not as smart as him either.
That's a question.
You know, one thing I'll do is admit when I'm wrong, and you're right, Mr. Salvatore, I'm not as smart as you probably never will be. So anyways, I thank you for that form. I did notice too that you also paid for it with your own funds. That was not paid for with city funds. When you saw me Saturday standing curbside in the street with my neighbor, that's exactly what we were discussing that form. I also want to thank you for that, because while I was down there discussing that with my senior neighbor, he also pointed out the problem with his gutter, and I ended up on Skippy's roof in between rainstorms. So thank you for that.
Street. You're welcome.
Yeah, okay.
It proves you're not as smart as you think. You're doing
Councilman Troy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through the chair to the law director, Mr. Jameson, so I can answer people's questions. It's been brought to my attention that, you know, the way this was done, your campaign paid for it, but it's being held at the rec center, and that seems to be a little bit of conflict, almost like I mean, to me, if you would have paid for it, if the city would have paid for it, have it at the rec center, it's a city event, that's great. It's a great thing that way. If you paid for it, what you did out of your campaign funds, and you have it at a non-city event, I think that's a great thing. But it just seems odd that you're having it at a city location, where I know the rec center is very strict about having campaign things happen at the rec center. So when somebody asks me, can you explain why that's okay and legal?
Well, first of all, I would say that, yeah, I did pay for this on my own, and the fact that I'm up for re-election, I didn't want any confusion by anybody in terms of that this was not paid for at taxpayers' expense. And as far as using the recreation center, I went through the proper channels to reserve that, and there was no objection made by the recreation director as to providing this service. And so along those lines, I don't think anything improper has been done. And again, this was out of my funds, and I just wanted it clear so there was no confusion, particularly in an election year, and that's why we put the disclaimer at the bottom.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Okay, we're going to move the agenda. We'll go to our finance director, Greg Sinkel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Monthly reports for mayor will be distributed within the next week. As always, if there are any questions, please don't hesitate to give me a call. Also, we'll make those reports available on the city's website. And just a quick update on the 2014 audit. The state auditors were back on site yesterday. They will be working through the month to finalize the audit for the 2014 fiscal year. And as I get more information, I will pass it along to City Council. And that concludes my report tonight, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Greg. Okay, we'll move the agenda to item K, other communication petitions of verbal approval. We have one for verbal approval, a request approval to construct a new 120-foot wireless communication tower at 16935 Hummel Road for Southwest Cab, located in a U5C zone.
Motion approved.
Support.
Motion approved.
Motion to approve, properly supported, under discussion. Shall call a roll on the motion.
Higgins?
Yes.
Mancini?
Yes.
Bergia?
Yes.
Powers?
Yes.
D'Amico?
Yes.
Troyer?
Yes.
Salvatore?
Yes.
Make a motion to go into executive session.
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Support.
There's a motion
For
made.
property matters.
Yeah.
For property matters.
Support.
Motion made, properly supported. Go into executive session for purchase of property. Shall call a roll.
Higgins?
Yes.
D'Amico?
Yes.
Troyer?
Abstain.
Salvatore?
Yes.
Mancini?
Yes.
Bergia?
Yes.
Powers?
A will recess in the executive session.